Can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. My feet have come too far for you to tie 'em to the ground. Can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. Set my sights on where I'm going at. They turn it back around. Can't stop me.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Psychic Coffee Shop. I'm Aeson Knight, and with me tonight is the Techie with Moses, Techie Joe. How are you, darling? Nice to see you vertical.
Well, I'm upright.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest improvement, and I may even stay upright for the whole show. I do believe.
Well, hopefully we'll get you back to your set soon, but you're doing well in the living room.
Yes. I am still in the living room. It is a little more comfortable for me, so
Yeah.
I'm probably at about 25%, but that's way better than I was probably the last show even.
Yeah. So it's good to have you back in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We were on Friday, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we done Friday. You done it from the couch.
Yeah, I didn't make it through upright. It was just kind of a slow slide down onto the couch.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, we saw Super Doc yesterday, which was immensely helpful.
Yes. Yeah. And very patient and very kind and as gentle as he could be.
Yeah. And he gave Aeson medicine, so be warned, Aeson's on antibiotics. That means his filter's turned off. He will gladly tell you you're a fucking idiot.
Oh, thank you, Brenda. Oh, hand pink waving. Hey, Shannon.
Yes. All right. So Walmart's just revealing something very interesting. Very, very interesting. If you're in Colorado, keep in your ears.
Yeah, this has been a slow changeover that I think actually got delayed a lot by COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Because we kind of started towards this, and then I think COVID kind of hit right as it should have implemented and gone hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
Plastic bags will now cost you 10 cents. They are no longer free.
Right.
So, yeah, single-use bags at Walmart will be, at least for 206 stores across the U.S. under the new changes. So 105 of those are in Colorado, joining Walmart locations in Vermont, Maine, and New Jersey that already enforce the rule.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings the total to 206 stores.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't bring your own reusable bags, customers will have to pay 10 cents to buy one at the register.
Right. Which we've seen for years, or at least I had in Ohio.
Right.
Bags have always cost.
Well, but then with COVID, we had this concern, and most stores actually prevented you from using your reusable bags because we don't even want to go there with that because, quite frankly, a lot of people don't really clean their reusable bags.
They don't.
I mean, a lot of them are not made to be easily cleaned.
Right.
Like, you can wipe them out, but externally speaking, the handles and the exterior of the bag, not really built for easy cleanup, easy,
Right.
And it is part of the problem. Like, the really nice cloth reusable bags are usually insulated.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the cloth bags are easily machine washable, but many of the others are like a heavy-duty plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And those don't really clean well. They also don't hold up well over time either.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and if you toss them in the washer and dryer, they're gonna fall apart.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So, this is what we do a lot of times, and I've gotten some looks from around people here. When we're forced to use the self-checkout, paying coins, just for the hell of it. And B, we take our groceries in our buggy out to the car.
Yep.
And then put them in the bags.
Yeah, routinely we don't bag anything in the store. Like we treat it like old school, like Save a Lot.
Yeah.
Y'all remember those stores? I think we still have one here don't we?
And it's here, but again, we don't shop
Yeah.
there.
We don't shop there. Or Aldi's. Aldi's is very much bring your own bag, or use that nice cart we let you rent for 25 cents.
Right, which I think should be standard in this country.
It does very good for cart return. I will say that. It's not like they have to go chase them all over the parking lot. I just think we're getting to a point that it eventually we're going to just have to do a credit card swipe for it.
Right.
Because who has 25 cents?
Well, again, I think that I'm glad to see this because I hate the plastic bags. They're cheaper than shit. They're crappy. I prefer paper bags because they hold more. But trying to find paper bags is ridiculous nowadays.
Mostly, yeah. Like that's a real problem for you at the holidays because you really like them for cooking your turkey.
My turkey, anything that you got to supposedly keep moist.
Mm-hmm.
Throw it in a paper bag. It'll keep it moist, and it's great for shaken fried chicken.
Hey, there you go. But no, and I remember when we switched over from paper to plastic.
Yeah.
Because that was supposed to be the great environmental saver is we're going to go from paper to plastic, okay? I remember Mom being really annoyed.
Yeah.
Like she liked your paper bags. They had more structure, and these were the old school paper bags that really were like
nice paper bags.
They were really nice paper bags. Like we didn't think of such a thing at the time, but now it's hard to find those anymore. Like I think Kroger's the only place you found really good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're the only store that still has like a decent paper bag option.
Right, and they're the only, and Walmart's I'm sure start having paper bags again. Ours currently does not. And they also mentioned that they are moving to paper bags.
Yeah, see here, I got to stop Brenda or say something to Brenda there. Yeah, so Aldi's and the Aldi's quarter, which I know a lot of people have. That is probably would be a thing for us if we actually shopped at our Aldi's. We have some problems with our Aldi's in Beckley.
Yeah, they don't have their food is day only.
Yeah, that I don't know what it is with that store, but anything we've gotten from there seemed to expire really quickly.
Yeah.
Or be bad before we brought it home.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we don't shop Aldi's.
No, because we would have been happily doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the thing with both. What I find interesting is Arizona's also banning the polyride container, the what are they? Styrofoam containers used for takeout food. This is such a switch, isn't it?
Do what now?
This is such a switch, isn't it?
Not really. There's a lot of issues with styrofoam.
Yeah.
Like styrofoam, one, just doesn't biodegrade well, and two, what it biodegrades into isn't really good for the environment. But additionally, using styrofoam,
right, is terrible.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, but I know everyone remembers that time. I believe it was the early 90s when they switched from styrofoam to paper and paper bags to plastic bags. That changeover that occurred, and it was like, what the hell is this shit?
Yeah, but then all of our cups suddenly, or all the large cups, switched from paper to styrofoam.
Right.
Like, it was so weird.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what are we doing? And then I also remember the point, does anyone else, when KFC used to put their hot sides in the styrofoam containers with a lid.
Yes.
Okay. Can I point out, like, everything I needed to know about styrofoam got taught to me at a Kentucky Fried Taco, which, if you don't know what that is, you have not been to a state that has combo restaurants where it's like a KFC Taco Bell. But yes, I used to live around the corner when they still use those from Kentucky Fried Taco. And that restaurant was the worst for pre-making food and then setting it under the heat lamp.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you don't even want to know what KFC macaroni and cheese does to one of those after like 2-3 hours under a heat lamp.
Right.
It is nasty.
Now, what I would love to see is what Canadians have done. The restaurant uses reusable silverware, like real silverware, real dishes when serving your food, unless it's a takeout order. And then they use plastic that's reusable again in your takeout. I would love to see that occur in the United States.
I don't know that we're going to get there. I think we're going to end up having to shift the other direction and, like, you know, sort of like other states, because we're still getting plastic straws in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like other states, we're going to basically start carrying silverware.
That'd be fine by me. As long as we have a sink to wash it at when we're done with it, I'm perfectly fine carrying our own silverware.
Yeah.
Like, at the point where I'm about ready to start, you know, eating out has lost its luster for me over the past 10 years.
True.
Like, you know, for me, it's almost a hassle when I'm trying to decide what I can have and what I can eat and what have they hidden in my food. Yeah. It's a pain in my ever-living ass.
Yes. Like, it's where I am glad in the early roughly the early 2000s, I kind of burned myself out on eating out. Mm-hmm. And got to a point that, like, eating out had already kind of lost some of its allure. Mm-hmm. And just kind of fell into the category of, I like eating out now more for finding new food.
Right.
Like, you know, what is this? How can I make this at home? Like, this is something I've never tried before. And I wouldn't necessarily either think to make this, nor would I think or want to, like, go buy all the ingredients to make this. Mm-hmm. So that's where most of my eating out kind of, like, when I get really excited about eating out, it's somewhere that just, like, I've never had this before.
Right. You know, like, or something that's complicated and hard to make. I get that. Yeah. But I'm talking about average going out to eat. Mm-hmm. If we look at our going out to eat habits, and I'm not talking pick up and take home. I'm talking sit down, have an eat out. Mm-hmm. It's a mom and pop restaurant. It's a single laws restaurant. That type of thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are most of the places you like.
Right.
And I'm okay with those. And usually for me, though, it's more functional. Like, we've got to eat. Mm-hmm. We're on the road. I can't bring a whole kitchen. We got to eat.
Right.
Now, what really excites me are some of the off the wall, like really, truly off the wall, like places with off the wall dishes. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, that like, we don't have this. I've never had this. This is a very specialized food. Mm-hmm. You know, it's why we now make pad thai. It's why we now make, you know, a few different things. Mm-hmm. Because I've had it in a restaurant and been like, I like that. How hard can it be?
Right.
You know, I mean, like, seriously, how hard could that be? So yeah.
Yeah, and we've done a few things this week that have brought back childhood memories, and it's like, oh yeah, I do actually like Hamburger Helper. Oh yeah, you know, we're having cheesy tuna tonight. You know, and these are the additions you do to it to make it eatable.
Or make it better or healthier, or, you know, it's not to make it edible. It's edible on its own. I think Hamburger Helper and Tuna Helper and all that got a really bad rap because I think a lot of moms got really tired back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And just, like, put the fucking dinner on the fucking table, like 30 minutes or less, low effort. Don't need this bullshit in my life. Like, I'm cooking for children.
Right.
Like, is it in a box? Can I add water?
Yeah.
Like, what is the bare minimum I have to do here?
And that's, well, that, and, you know, the invisible assistant's learning to cook for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, these are great ways to get him started cooking so that all three of us can take on dinner routine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that, you know, he can cook something. We just have to plan ahead, make sure it's box instructions
Mm-hmm.
with precise measurements. Like he's the type, he's a British, he'll be great as a British baker because he can lay stuff out. That'll fascinate him.
Oh yeah, he would love it. Either that, or we've got to get him a copy of a mannequin and a plan.
Yeah.
Like, I think he could work with that. That's enough, like, you know, a box meal.
Right.
It's just an unboxed meal. It has all the thing, like, you buy specific ingredients, and then it just goes together formulaically.
Right.
And the whole formula's there. And at least he can boil water, unlike one of my nephews.
Yes, he can boil water. He's still a little fearful of chopping stuff up, so, you know, everything comes in a bag now anyhow.
You know. Yeah. Hey, I'm all about saving time. Like, I have no problem with that. I will buy pre-cut veggies all day long.
I'm all about everyone knowing how to do shit. Training, so that we can go, nope. It starts with today starts with a T. It's the Invisible Assistance Day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Shannon wants to know if we want her to bring her kid over to show him a few things.
Not until I'm better.
Well, not until you're better, definitely.
Yeah.
And actually, he does really good.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
Showing him simple baking. I will give him credit. He does really good with the oven.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is our chief, like, you know, go-to for, like, bake the frozen thing.
Right.
Like, again, it follows that same principle of, is it in a box? Does it have instructions?
Yep.
And then he's totally comfortable and fine and good to go.
Yeah. It isn't like he can't cook. He just doesn't know everything of how to cook it. So that will be interesting. We had an interesting visitor to the state of West Virginia yesterday. Was it yesterday?
Oh, we did?
Yes, it was yesterday. Bill Gates came to West Virginia, and not for an emergency plane land.
I know, right? Apparently Bill Gates is considering West Virginia to expand nuclear energy efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Glasgow, West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Gates is looking to West Virginia as he plans for the next phase of his efforts to reboot U.S. nuclear energy technology powering the East Coast. Microsoft co-founder Gates, who visited a closed-down coal-fired plant in Glasgow, West Virginia on Monday, said he needs to see how his Natrium nuclear reactor demonstration in Wyoming performs before making any announcements about new sites. The Chemamere, Wyoming sodium-cooled nuclear reactor is taking over the site of a current coal-powered plant and was scheduled to be online by 2028, but is facing delays because its only source of fuel was uranium from Russia, now at war with the Ukraine.
However, during the visit, the American Electric Power Plant, which closed in 2015, Gates called the West Virginia legislation's decision last year to repeal the state's ban on nuclear power quite impressive, and said he's looking for sites to expand his efforts on the East Coast. West Virginia new law opens the door for discussions with the American Electric Power during the last 6 months, said Gates, who founded Terra Power, a company behind $4 billion project in Wyoming. Really, I think 6 months ago, we really weren't on the radar at all. Nuclear wasn't, but the legislature did say, okay, well, we open our minds to nuclear. And quite impressive. He said the American Electric Power Plant, known as AEP, the Wyoming coal-fired plant that has been converted to sodium-cooled nuclear reactors, is scheduled in 2025 for closure, when Gates said 200 employees will still be on and transferring the transferred to the Working Nuclear Energy Demonstrating Project in many U.S. states as nuclear emerges as an option to help translate the energy production away from coal and oil and natural gas to reduce greenhouse gases. The Wyoming plant will feature sodium reaction and molten sodium energy storage system that will perform better, more safer, and cost less than traditional nuclear power plant, Gates said. Interesting.
Hmm.
I want to see what it does to the bills.
That will be a good one.
Right.
I would hope that as we, because nuclear, frankly, becomes a much cheaper source of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is cleaner for the environment in most cases. No perfect energy exists.
Right.
Except for, solar and wind, and those do require some storage, and that storage is generally in batteries, and batteries again,
right,
not perfect.
Right.
But as for nuclear, it is about as clean as it can get, barring any disaster.
Yep.
Like that's generally, what we have had to learn the hard way with nuclear over the past decades.
Well, here's the thing. We've got all this nuclear waste.
Mm-hmm.
That's sitting there. It's just old technology. We can take the nuclear out of it and actually use it to produce power. Why not do that?
Well, there is that.
It's just transferring the uranium out of the nuclear bombs into the power plant.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very likely. Though then again, that assumes it's still stable enough to be used. Like, basically, when you send a bomb up, you don't care,
right?
As long as it goes boom,
right?
So whether or not it's stable is kind of
normally
an unstable reaction. That is your nuclear weapon,
right?
But whether or not that material would be safely transferable and stable enough.
Mm-hmm.
Also, whether or not there would be enough of it.
True. But I'm quite sure that 8 miles of nuclear waste in a storage facility out in Wyoming that's 8 miles long of old bombs, there should be enough to scrape together to make one small power plant. Furthermore, how much it would actually cut the cost of operations,
mm-hmm.
because you aren't having to continually buy the product to produce it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that is some of the general, situation with nuclear energy is, generally speaking, you don't have to do a lot of replacement.
Right.
Like, those plants are intended to go for decades.
Yes, if not longer.
Now, the problem generally with nuclear energy, as many countries have found, are the older school reactors that were water cooled.
Right.
Because eventually you can no longer cycle that water.
Right.
And then it becomes its own nuclear waste.
Mm-hmm. But he's looking at salt coolant.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be a more storable waste product.
Well, not only that, but it could be also reused in other ways. I mean, I think we abandoned nuclear technology too early.
I don't. I can see your point. I think, though, the unfortunate history of nuclear is such that we probably pump the brakes very hard on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because of a disaster.
Right.
And it may have kept us from being more cavalier with it.
Right.
Because if you go to like situation like, and granted, I know it's a movie, but like when you're talking about technology, as reflected in movies, and in other other media as well, or other movies, other films, other TV shows. There was this belief that nuclear energy was going to be safe enough to have a home nuclear reactor.
Right.
And that was probably a trajectory we were on, but not for a very massive failure.
Right.
That said, no. Much like, the debate over ACDC before it, much like the, actual activity of wiring up homes in the beginning, we got a little too cavalier with the technology without understanding its dangers.
Yep.
And that, no, this is not a perfect, it is not child's play.
Right. And that's agreeable. But I also would love to see, and I think the government should do this, go through, and every homeowner that wants the option, have solar panels put on their house, paid for by the government.
Okay.
The government pays for it. They install the solar panels for so many years. They get the rebate check. I don't know, 5, 10. Government seems like 7.
Okay.
But the homeowner gets the benefit of the solar energy. You've seen them do this in India. And they're having a really good move with that.
Yeah. Well, the India in and of itself is a little more of a limited climate range. And probably better suited.
I don't know. I think everywhere is fairly well suited for solar energy. Maybe not as the primary, and I think that's what people have to get over. Is that you have one source.
Yeah, no, I don't think we solve the energy problem with one source.
Right.
That we all just agree that it's this one thing and that's all there is.
Right. But if you take example of this house, we put solar panels on it. And then we put 2 wind turbines on the top of the roof of the house, like weather vanes. And that is kind of fueling our power with a backup source. Not a backup source, but it all comes into this converter where you're getting solar power and you're getting wind power and you have the grid power, and all that is going on at one time. I think that we would see a lot different energy usage, energy production needed for the average American home. And the surplus of it.
Well, true. I think that also has to come with, a long-term maintenance strategy. Because you don't want homeowners to just sign up for the program, get the panels installed by the government, who then takes a check for however long, 7 years, and the homeowner just kind of does nothing.
Right.
And just kind of waits around for the next government program that'll replace them or fix them, whatever. Because you're going to have incidents.
Right.
Things are going to happen. Baseballs are going to be hit. Trees will fall.
Right.
Storms will occur.
Right.
And you don't want to necessarily see this kind of investment, like if you go to do this, fundamentally failing because the homeowner's incapable of keeping up with the maintenance side of it.
Well, again, that would be part of the government energy plan. And I think if we really invested some real dollars in it, like some governmental dollars in it, we would also see development of better solar panels.
I would also like to see areas like disused portions of like state parks. Like, as in, it's not a habitat,
right?
It wouldn't interfere with a habitat, and it's just an otherwise not usable space, being converted for mass solar production for local communities.
Right, and see that could be used on all these strip mine places that we have here in West Virginia. There's large parts of West Virginia. Big flat areas.
Yep.
All right, guys, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about California.
Alrighty.
Hi, I'm Dottie the Psychic, and I'm sure you're wondering why I'm not wearing any makeup. Well, one reason is to irritate my social media manager, Aeson Knight. Hi, Aeson. The other reason is because I like to get to the naked truth about what it means to be a neurodivergent LGBT person with psychic abilities. I've got vlogs, blogs, and podcasts and videos, all related to trying to live my best life and helping witches and bitches do the same thing. So, you can check all that out and get a reading from Dottie the Psychic at DOTTIEthepsychic.com. Safe travel and much profit to you.
Do you have a cute pet? We know you do. Each week, Tracy Van chooses from submitted photos a featured reader for her Facebook page and provides a tarot reading. Your adorable pet cat, dog, rabbit, goat, chicken, snake, or more could be her next featured reader. Visit tracyvan.com, TracyVann.com, and click Featured Reader to submit. We look forward to seeing your pet next.
Hey everybody, Lady Gwendolyn here, and I am here to tell you how to get in contact with me and a little bit about what I do. I am the High Priestess that works with shadow work to help you grow and heal. And I work with access bars, Reiki, I do power forms. I'm recently getting into crystal healing, sound therapy as well. So you can go to Lady Gwendolyn Healing, that is LadyGwendolynHealing.com. Book your appointment with me. I do in person, I do over the phone, I do over Zoom. We can do that as well. My main goal is to help you grow and heal, because I've been there, I'm still going through it, and I let my strength help guide you. See you soon.
Hey everybody, Natalie here from The Pendulum's Path. If you are in need of guidance, direction, spiritual connection, healing, or more, you have come to the right place. I have worked as a psychic and a medium for over 3 years, connecting people from all over the world with their loved ones, giving them insight and guidance into their current situations, their past healings, their blockages, and what they need to know in order for them to have a better future. It would be my absolute honor if you would come to my website at www.thependulumspath.com. Visit my shop. I have a whole bunch of crystals, oils, balms, mystery boxes, and more. And visit my services. I offer 15-minute, 30-minute, and 60-minute sessions. I also have email readings available if you're not comfortable with the one-on-one session with me, or if you just want to try me out. I encourage you to come visit me at the Pendulum's Path, and let's get you back on the right track today.
All right.
All right. So as we know, the West has had a drought for a very long time.
Yes.
They may not get out of drought, but they're getting pounded. Massive evacuations, according to the LS Time, through Montrose storm. These micro-city storms that are pounding LA. They've been pounding on last week, and now they're getting dumped again with 16 inches of rain in some mountainous areas.
Yes. And that there this is a unfortunate non-Goldilocks zone. There is such a thing as too much or too little.
Yes.
So they've gone from the extremity of too little, which of course hardens soil and makes things dusty and arid, to then getting too much, which turns into mudslides and soil erosion and, the whole series of problems that you get from long-term drought,
right?
When tons of water hits it,
right?
So yeah, the California is really taking a pounding, both with the struggle to get through a drought, and then to turn around and have more rain than you can handle,
Right.
Coming down far quicker than anything is built to handle.
Right. And, their stuff isn't built for this.
No.
Meaning they don't have drainages, they don't have things. And what's interesting, and I was watching this earlier, they're having sinkholes form that they didn't know were there because of the flood water. Like it's opening up sinkholes.
Right. And it may not even be that the sinkholes were previously there.
Right.
The fun of sinkholes is water goes where water wants to go. And, it follows a downhill lowest point path of least resistance. What can happen is after long-term drought, after long-term dryness, water that would normally not be a problem, hits very dry spots of dirt and erodes it quickly. Because in addition to, part of the horrors of drought are you lose trees, you lose grass, you lose ground cover, you lose bushes and shrubs and all those wonderful things as well. All of which help to hold soil in place. So then you have that water running through areas that, have not seen water in a very long time. That has also lost its erosion control.
Right.
Grass, trees, bushes, all that. And in turn, it doesn't have anything holding it together.
Right.
So what would have been perfectly fine with a nice average occasional rainfall, suddenly wants to run away.
Well, not only that, but there's other things that are occurring because, as they've had earthquakes, as they've had these things throughout the century.
Right.
Because they're showing some pictures of what was that, then an earthquake and basically they just covered it over and started over. Well, now that's being opened back up because the soil they used to cover over the areas and like covered buildings and everything is now filling with water.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so there wasn't a good irrigation plan or more importantly, a good drainage plan.
Right.
A good plan for that water to naturally dissipate.
Right.
And again, you just end up making a soup bowl.
Right.
Anyone from like McDowell County, West Virginia understands this concept perfectly. How many floods does it take?
Right.
Before you understand that like poor unfortunate Welch is carved out of a mountain and it has no drain hole.
Right.
So everything just collects. And it's not a big deal in a normal average rainfall.
Right.
It's when you get a severe storm that those water levels just keep rising.
Right.
Because there's nowhere for that water to go other than to naturally absorb or run away.
Right.
So yeah, it's the same thing there. The sites that they have dumped or left in place damaged buildings.
Right.
And then took a landfill approach and just covered it over. And went, we'll make a pretty green space out of that poor, unfortunate, demolished building.
Well, no, they went ahead and built a town on top of it.
Well, true, but it's how it all starts.
Right.
Make the pretty green space again. Now you can build on top of it again. Unfortunately, that didn't follow the natural plan of the land for water.
Yeah.
So then you have, it's effectively the same thing as a sinkhole. It just forms a little differently. In addition, if you've dumped dry dirt into a hole that then stayed dry, you're just now finding out how imperfect that was, because what generally happens is dirt settles. And as it, that the rainwater soaks in and floats through, it's going to push dirt into different places and pockets and fill it up. So usually over time, even if you compact it beautifully, when you fill dirt, you expect to have to go back and regrade it. And re-level it, because there's going to be sinkholes that open, and there's going to be,
or rivers that reappear.
True. That can also be a huge problem when you are in a drought, and you start trying to build in areas that were previously floodplains.
Yeah.
Like it's built construction and planning has long had a problem with the understanding of the weather always changes.
Yeah.
And so when you do geographical studies for building, you are supposed to take these things into account. It's why you will sometimes see bridges that serve no purpose. Because there's not a water source, so why'd you build a bridge?
Right.
Because it's a floodplain.
Right.
And while it may not happen every 5 minutes,
right,
at some point, a storm will be bad enough. This area will flood.
Right.
This is the natural point at which water escapes.
Right.
So if you try to, just flat build a road across it, like mound up your dirt and build a road, you're going to make a lake.
Right.
With a really shitty dam. And that is not a road you want to be on, and that is not where you want your house located.
Right.
It's also why you sometimes see a lot of over construction.
Well, that, and now they're having a larger problem with homeless population because the homeless had built homes in these storm drains that never was storming.
Well, yeah, and California has a very nice aqueduct system.
Yeah.
That for many years has been dry.
Right.
And again, it becomes a disused space, and disused spaces always become home to something.
Right.
Either some human or some animal.
Right.
This is the nature of these things. So in addition to a homeless population, you're also probably seeing a lot of displaced animals.
Right.
Because these areas do become shelter for like birds and, those kinds of things.
Right.
So yeah, you're going to see a very large displaced homeless population because this was a disused area. That it was built for a purpose that it no longer served.
Right.
And became a stable housing environment.
Right.
For those without stable housing.
Right.
So yes, and again, this is the unfortunate part of when we don't plan appropriately.
Right.
Which has to also include not just floodplains, but plan for people.
Right.
Because it's an unfortunate reality that when you become homeless, you will generally seek out a disused area.
Right.
To live in, where no one's going to harass, bother, and you're safe from the elements.
Right.
Or you can build enough to be safe from elements.
Right.
So that's the unfortunate part of not planning for homelessness. When we try to treat it as a social problem that we want to go away.
Right. Instead of dealing with it.
Instead of tackling the problem.
Right.
And acknowledging that homelessness is a thing that exists and something that we do have to allocate resources for.
Right.
And not just try to bust out of our communities and force to become someone else's problem.
Right. And when, I saw Orion's weather report last week, I was like, oh, we need to brace. We need to get ready. And I'm going to restate this. If you are in an area and they issue evacuation orders, don't fuck around. It is not time to be headstrong. Get your shit and get the hell out.
Yes.
And I'm going to go ahead and throw out Ryan Hall's YouTube channel. I love this guy's weather reports. They have always been accurate. I turn to him before I turn to anyone else.
Very cool. But no, it always gets me. Because a lot of people really won't take storms seriously. And yes, the weather is imperfect.
Yes.
Like, I think we're all clear on that. But, you know, as we go through these storms and as we go through the experiences of them, it becomes more and more readily apparent that it really is up to us.
Yes.
And it is kind of why I like our current work culture that is saying, wait, I'm reevaluating my priorities. Thank you very much.
Right.
Because, you know, before I started working at the collections agency I was at, the year before, there was a massive snowmageddon that hit North Carolina.
Right.
That was 2004. Maybe early 2005, I forget which. And I had coworkers with just story after story after story of being trapped on I-40.
Right.
And having to abandon their vehicles, or being scared to death they were going to run out of gas, or being scared to death they were just going to die.
Right.
That you know, like, yay, they weren't in a massive accident, or, you know, may have been, but they were trapped in the traffic.
Right.
And again, a lot of this is about planning and about companies understanding responsibility for, you know, no, this is not a normal situation.
Right.
You know, it is better to send these people home and be wrong than to strand your employees on I-40 for hours on end and let them suffer, you know, through the fear, if not the actual tragedy, of being stranded on I-40 or being stranded on some major roadway with nowhere to go, no food, no facilities, and potentially facing hypothermia and frostbite. Like, I'm sorry, I find that a very serious thing that, you know, is part of the social contract of business.
Right.
You need to understand that you are responsible for the people that work for you in that regard. That, much like the Amazon fire, where they kept telling people, I believe it was Amazon, where they kept telling people not to leave the building.
Right.
That it wasn't on fire, that everything was fine. No, you have equal responsibility for a disaster.
Right.
In ensuring that you take make the decision to go ahead and close.
Right. And you make the move to do what's best for your employees. Unlike we saw in Kentucky. Now, we are seeing many California and many LA companies shutting down, telling their employees to go work from home, which I'm finding.
I mean, let's all keep in mind that the bellwether of storms severity is also is known as the Waffle House closure report.
Right.
But pointing out in that even Waffle House has a point in which it says, no, we're closed.
Right.
Like, we cannot leave our employees here.
Right.
You know, and respect that.
Right.
That, you know, and I do, and I think everyone does, that, like, Waffle House doesn't close just because it's windy.
Exactly.
But Waffle House will very much close when threatened with a storm.
Right. All right, let's move on to something I am not looking forward to reporting. I am very shocked and saddened by this happening in Virginia. It is now being reported that there was no fights or warnings before this 6-year-old shot teacher in Virginia. 6-year-old.
Yeah.
But they now do not know how to charge him.
I'm very much sure they do not. So the shooting of a Virginia teacher by a 6-year-old boy in her classroom last week happened without warning, with no fight or physical struggle, authorities have said. Quote, "What we know today is that she was providing instruction. He displayed a firearm, he pointed it, and he fired one round," said the Newport News Police Chief, Steve Drew. Drew offered the first detailed description of a shooting that shocked the city and was notable even in a country like the U.S., where incidents of gun violence are common. Drew had previously said the shooting was not accidental and declined to elaborate. So yeah.
Yeah.
So 6-year-old first grade teacher who was 25 years old.
Right.
And the chief has been very clear this was intentional, not accidental.
Right.
So yeah, the 9mm handgun used by the boy was bought legally by his mother and kept in the family's home. He said the boy brought it to school in his backpack the day of the shooting. So yeah, I there seems to be no real clear why.
Right. It isn't like that he was being picked on by the teacher or anything like that. Okay. So Drew said, although her injuries were initially considered life-threatening, she has improved and is in hospital in stable condition. Drew also held her as a healer for quickly halting her students out of the classroom after she was shot. He said surveillance videos show that she was the last person to leave the classroom. She made a right turn and started down the stairway, and then she stopped, turned around, and made sure every one of her students were safe. Okay, you've been shot, but you're making sure that your students are safe.
You might want to check the connection settings in the Google Home app.
Google, we're not interested in you right now.
I know, right? But no, I don't think anyone knows what to call this.
Right.
I mean, then again, we are also dealing with a 6-year-old.
Right.
As an active perpetrator of a crime.
Right.
I don't know that motivation necessarily has to be clear. I think everyone wants it to make it make sense.
Right. Now here's the problem. The youngest charged is 14 in the state of Virginia. You have to be 14 years of age to be charged with a crime.
Mm-hmm.
You have a 6-year-old that is now shot and mortally injured, meaning she could have died from this gun violence, brought a gun to school, stole a gun from their mother. Which problem one, why is a 6-year-old having anything to do with a gun? Why was it not taught to respect the gun as, no, you don't touch that, and mean it, is my problem. Now there's no laws on the books currently to charge him. They don't know what to do with him. He's being held in a medical facility.
True. Though I will go back to one thing you said is I don't know this necessarily shows that he was not taught to respect a weapon. Again, however, I think there's a problem there. Is we are trying to apply adult logic and reasoning to a child of age 6. And I really think there's a struggle there.
Right.
To, one, articulate properly to a child what this is, what it does, and how, one, that they should never touch it, and why, and understanding. I'm not saying this child's totally incapable of understanding at all. I'm just saying that we're, again, trying to apply adult logic and reasoning to a situation, unfortunately, caused by a child. And I think that's why there is, a statute that says you cannot charge someone under 14 with crime.
Right.
Is because there's an understanding, legally speaking, that for a child of at least a certain age, whether that's 13, 12, 11, 10, whatever, age, that total responsibility for their actions isn't really a thing that they have.
Right.
This is part of childhood, is you do have to learn, actions have consequences.
Right.
And what those are and how to make intelligent choices.
Right. Well, here's my problem. Children that grew up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s. Sorry, there's been a shotgun beside that front door in the room you're in. We grew up with guns. We all knew you don't touch it. It is loaded. It will fire and go bang, bang and do very bad things. Watch what this does to a can. This was instilled in us. Okay. Why is this not, like, as a responsible gun owner, one, if we have children in the house, they're not allowed near my weapon. They can't even find my weapon. Two, why was this child even having access to a weapon? Three, why was the child not taught to have that in, do not touch? The world will end if you touch this.
Again, this is where I think that it's not necessarily true that he was not told those things. I think, again, we're trying to take adult logic and reasoning,
right,
and apply them to a child that may have been in a situation where he just didn't like this teacher and wanted her to go away.
Right.
And not being clear on how that works,
right,
or what that means. He's applied a gun to a situation that really shouldn't have had a gun.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily true. That's just one potential scenario.
Right. Because we still do not know this. We do not know what's going on here, why this child had access to this weapon.
True.
And it's not, this is not an assault rifle. This is a 9mm.
Yeah.
The gun, it would have been heavy for him to handle. Should have been heavy for him to handle, unless gun makers have gotten stupid. Why it was not locked up is beyond me. Why it was not put in a place that a 6-year-old cannot get to is beyond me.
Well, I also have a general theory of children is, they all follow the logic of build a better mousetrap. You just build a better mouse.
Not in today's technology. I'm sorry.
Well,
there are gun locks that require a thumbprint. There are, and that's for retrofitting guns. They can make guns right now that if your fingerprint does not match the trigger, it does not fire. Why this has not become standard in weaponization is beyond me. You can't open my phone and read my damn text messages unless you're my thumbprint, your phone, your fingerprint, my fingerprints, or know the code.
Right. No, and I get that. I also question whether this was a situation that stems out of domestic violence.
That's a bigger question here.
Because generally speaking, and with like, if you're a woman who loves guns, you're a woman who loves guns. But demographically speaking, the general ownership of weapons is more of a male dominated arena, especially within a home with children.
Right.
I would question whether this all started out of a worse situation to some degree.
Right.
In which this child has been previously exposed to a lot of violence. And without good, clear support.
Right.
And in terms of mental health, unfortunately learned some very wrong lessons at a very young age, while also in a situation where a mother is effectively sleeping with a gun under her pillow so that she feels safe and able to protect her child.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
That would be my next suspicion when you're asking, like, why was this gun accessible to a 6-year-old?
Right.
It may have been a situation in which, generally speaking, no, this is not a mother who planned to like take her son shooting on, after class that day and just like this is family activity. as much as they've just come out of a very horrible situation in which her effort to try to keep them safe, or to at least reclaim her feeling of safety and his, unfortunately led down a very tragic road.
Right. And see, this is the mentality that I grew up with. You know, don't point a gun unless you plan on shooting it. If you shoot it, you better plan on killing somebody. You know, Brent was within that same generation. But here's the thing. There needs to be some fucking standards of what a gun is. And it needs to be technologically more advanced than what they currently are. There's no reason for the industry standard not to be fingerprint recognition. There is no standard of reason for there to be AR-15s on the open market. I can't buy a tank. There should be no AR-15s.
Fair enough.
Otherwise, Patriot Ford needs to hurry up and order me one, because I want one.
No.
Yes.
We have nowhere to park it.
Yes, we do.
And the fuel costs are insane.
But
But
you can run it off of rubbish. It's been proven. The Russians have proved that you can run it off of rubbish. They've literally took the wheat that was planned for our pasta in the United States and fueled their tanks with it.
well, there you go.
But
yeah,
you know, I am all Second Amendment, but I am also sensible Second Amendment. Bear arms. Not 3,000. You have 2 hands. You can carry 2 guns. You can own 2 guns legally. Guns, not weapons of war.
no, you can't, Shannon. And no, he can't, Brenda. No flamethrowers and no tanks.
Yeah.
But that all said, we've embraced technology in so many other ways.
Right.
The fact that we are still barely move the needle from the Wild West on gun manufacture,
right,
other than make it fire faster and be lighter, we really haven't embraced new technology towards gun ownership.
Right.
The most we have done is gun safes.
No, the most we have done technology based wise we have done is laser scopes.
Yep. Really adapted the laser scope. But other than that, we really have not been a fan of anything that makes guns safer. Especially around children, especially around people who should not have access to them, especially around ensuring the safety of the gun owner not being shot and killed with their own weapon. Right. Because, you know, as sad as the situation is with this child taking this gun to school and shooting a teacher,
right.
That means there was a period where he was alone in that house with his mother. There was a period in which he was leaving that house with his mother. There was a point in which he got to school before he got in her class where his mother was at risk, his neighbors were at risk, other kids were at risk. Because this is a child handling a gun. Anything can go wrong.
Right. Well, I wanted to see something because my equate to this is cars. Okay. In my brain, gun responsibility is the same with car responsibility.
Okay. Well, and I think that's some of how my reasoning goes with there could be a multitude of situations where the child ended up with access to a gun.
Right.
Is because, of course, we don't want or expect a 6-year-old to drive a car.
Right.
The number of 6-year-olds who end up creating, you know, disastrous outcomes, usually more in property damage than personal injury, is unbelievable.
Right.
And it's often a situation in which, you know, it didn't seem like a big deal at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just running into the store. He was buckled in the back seat.
Right.
I didn't think anything would happen.
Right.
It's like every parent's response.
Right.
Like, I just had to run back into the house. I just had to run into the store. I just had to pay a bill.
Right.
You know, and he was buckled in the seat and blah, 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 blah. And then child is no longer buckled in the seat, gets into the front seat and, you know, drives.
Right.
I don't think any more in that situation can you think that the child had a motive than in this one, or at least not assume it. Oh, I apparently have a messenger.
Yeah.
Hello, Brenda.
All right. So apparently 2001 was the last incident of a child stealing a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A 6-year-old stealing a vehicle and crashing into a home.
Okay.
After he snatched his father's keys off the bathroom sink.
Okay. I'm just curious. So what was the motivator in that one?
He wanted to go for a ride.
He wanted to go for a ride.
Right.
And I'm assuming dad said no.
Right.
And so he decided that's okay. I can do it myself.
Right.
And that's unfortunately child logic.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Like,
right.
What told this child you can drive a car? You don't need someone with a license or, you know,
right.
skill and ability and everything else.
Yeah. Granted, this was in Dutchland.
Mm-hmm.
The next report of that is in 2008 when a 7-year-old takes a car on a car ride and apparently just got pulled over by the police.
Okay, well, you apparently have to have a demilitarized, disabled main gun if you want to own a tank.
Okay, that's cute. I need the gun. I
now,
have to be able to accept orders.
Hold on.
To remove traffic obligations.
And then, while it is legal to own a tank in the U.S., where you can drive it can be more tricky. Some roads have weight limits posted on the roads, or you may have to check with the state's laws. Many states and localities have a weight limit of 34,000 pounds, but the federal limit goes even higher to 80,000 pounds.
Right. So here's my logic with that.
Okay.
You don't need a weapon that fires more than 9 bullets. Personally, I think you only need 2. One for a warning shot and one to drop them. But that's my personal opinion. 9 bullets is all you technically need a weapon to be able to carry. You can't own a tank that is fully usable. They disable that. And it's much more than a paperclip to re-enable that.
Yes.
Sensible ownership.
Yeah.
What's the problem here?
Honestly, I think it is this view that sensible ownership is censored ownership. Like, you can own a gun, but you can't. You can own it, but you can't use it. You can own it, but you can't blah, blah, blah. You can own it, but you can't sell it. You can own it, but you can't do this.
Right.
And I think a lot of people end up having a unfettered Second Amendment view, as in this should never be restricted in any way.
Right.
Because what they're seeing are more about the restriction than about the intelligent sensibility, responsibility of it.
Right. But, you know, the fingerprint lockout would solve a lot of problems, especially in the on the darker side of selling weapons, because guess what? The gun won't fire. We've seen this with Apple and iPhones. The gun won't fire unless it's your fingerprint. And if you make it to where you have to go to a gun shop to reprogram that.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's also fear with that what about that one time when you need it desperately?
Yeah.
And the fingerprint sensor doesn't work?
Right.
Like, it doesn't recognize your print for some reason. The battery's dead in the fingerprint sensor. Something goes wrong.
If you're doing your monthly maintenance, that you should be as a responsible owner, you can easily tell the battery needs replaced.
But I'm saying these are arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're sweaty and it's not reading. Like, I think we've all had that moment of where, like, we're sweaty, or we've been cooking, or like we've been doing dishes, and fingerprint sensors don't always read.
Exactly. You have a code that, you have a code on your phone. You can have a code on the gun. You have to do a set of actions to make it unlock. Pull trigger 3 times, repetitively fast, push safety on, off, whatever. There's a buyout code for everything. And that has to be done, or it's useless. It's sensible. It's logical.
No, I'm not opposed. I'm just saying I think these are arguments that are made.
Right.
And I think even with the like a lockout override, I again think people have fear of, am I going to be able to do that in an emergency?
Well,
like if it's 2:00 in the morning, someone breaks into my house, my fingerprint sensor isn't working.
Right.
And now I have to remember the override. It's it's the middle of the night. I just got woke up. There's someone else in my house that shouldn't be here.
Right.
It's the classic home defense scenario. 2:00 in the morning, someone breaks in your house. And you're woken from a dead sleep. And now you are dealing with this situation, trying to defend yourself, and you have it failing to do the thing.
Right.
And I like Shannon's response. Machete.
Exactly. We have a few.
Yeah.
We
like,
have a few
gun, go for something else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If your gun is your only form of defense in your house, then you're stupid.
I think that's a very valid point, but I also think that if that's all you are relying on for home safety, you are far overestimating your personal capacity.
Exactly.
Because again, what the statistics bear out, is the 2:00 someone breaks into your home scenario.
Right.
The choices you're gonna, this is the situation you feel you've woken up to. More commonly leads to not shooting an invader of your home.
Right.
That is part of this classic scenario. It's more likely you shoot a fellow household member that you forgot or were unaware was coming in at a late hour. A child who has gotten up in the middle of the night and has done childish things. That you are more likely to be in a situation where this is an accidental shooting.
Well, and we always had that before you moved in. Luckily, I'd moved my gun, but I woke up from a nightmare, didn't really wake up from it, and went into response and reached for the gun. And that's when the gun got moved away from my bedside table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's not that's not really sensible ownership. Like, one has to account and accommodate for that, is that, this classic home defense strategy is kind of bullshit. You are more likely to shoot someone else. So Aunt kept a shotgun loaded with busted glass, rock salt, and hot pepper because it's way in and salt and hot pepper followed. Oh, cut its way in and salt and hot pepper followed. Didn't kill anyone, but made them wish they were dead.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a better choice if that's your primary home defense. Is create a situation that is not lethal.
Right.
In and of itself.
Right.
That would very much, stop
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the ultimate message of this classic home defense strategy. Is you want that person to stop.
Right.
Now, there are those that go further, and it's like, no, I aim to kill. No. I think that's immediately problematic.
Right.
Like, I think in the classic home invasion scenario, your goal isn't to kill. Your goal is to stop.
Right.
Make the activity that's occurring stop.
Right. And just a reminder, because Shannon's talking about malicious wounding lawsuits in the comments. Not in the state of West Virginia. In the state of West Virginia, if they are 2 foot within your home and you have warned them and requested them to leave, and they do not leave, it is not malicious wounding. If you disable them, if you fear for your life. Yep. And this has always been my opinion. Never have a plan.
Have plans A through
F.
Yeah. And generally speaking, if you want to talk about the statistics, generally your best home defense in that scenario is 911.
Looking at current teachings, and of course we both know, because we both took statistics, you can bend statistics to say anything you want them to say.
Granted, that is true, but what I mean is if you can secure yourself in a space, call 911, generally speaking, the outcomes are better.
Right.
For everyone. For the actual intruder, for yourself in an actual intruder scenario, and for situations where, oops, your teenager sneaking in the middle of the night because you thought they were in their bedroom and they were not.
Right.
Or oops, you forgot your wife worked late. Oops, you forgot your college age kid was coming home from college and going to be in late that night.
Right. That is why you should always A, know what you're shooting, know who you're shooting, know why you're shooting them. B, manage your guns. And C, if you have a 6-year-old in the house, that gun needs to be behind 2 locks, not just 1.
Oh yeah.
Point blank.
Yeah. But again, with the classic 2 a.m. scenario, I think a lot of people overestimate their ability.
Right. And see what gets me, and this aggravates me about this case, and then we need to go to commercial.
Okay.
The worst this parent is going to get is $2,500 in fines and possibly a year in jail. That's bad.
Yeah.
Okay. That's bad in general. That's ridiculous. She could get more for drinking and driving in the state of Virginia. Nah.
But again, with drinking and driving, what you technically are being charged there is with making the choice, abusing the privilege, and causing and the obvious potential to cause harm.
Right.
Versus the scenario that this mother finds herself in.
Right.
I don't think that there's any way to, unless they can specifically prove that she, abused the privilege and knowingly committed an act, and, there was obvious potential. I don't think anyone expects to buy a gun, take it home, and end up on the nightly news because their 6-year-old took the gun to school and shot a teacher. That's not a clear, obvious line.
Right.
And unless she specifically instructed this child, this is what you go to school and do tomorrow. You see what I'm saying?
Sorry. In my opinion, yes. She's at fault. Okay? If you have to keep your dog on a leash because it might bite somebody, you should have to keep your gun put up.
Or we could just put children on leashes. It would all be easier.
That's it.
Sorry, that was my father's theory, but
I think a responsible parent has their child on a leash when they are in Walmarts. They should not be, but that gets me onto a tangent. All right, guys, let's take a commercial break and we'll be back.
All right.
Welcome back, Goblins! My name is Jason, and I am the host of the Esoteric Book Club, a podcast that examines titles on the magical, paranormal, the mysterious, and the strange. I release 2 episodes a month in which I review books on esoteric topics, recap news of the weird, and conduct interviews with authors, practitioners, and experiencers. The Esoteric Book Club can be found on every major podcast service or can be streamed directly from esotericbookclub.org.
Hi, I'm Tracy Van. I provide a blended reading consisting of mediumship, psychic, and tarot cards. A reading from me can cover any guidance you need from relationships with your partner or your family, spiritual, financial, any questions you may need clarity on. If you would like to book an appointment with me, check out my website, tracyvann.com. That's TracyVann.com. I have bookings from 15 to 60 minutes you may choose from. That helps if you just have a quick question, need an answer, or if you're looking for a reading in more depth, I'm here to provide the guidance and clarity for you. Let's just figure it out. Bye.
Hi, Techie Joe here. I work with Aeson Knight and some of the best psychics in West Virginia to create amazing live streams and podcasts for the Psychic Coffee Shop Network. Together, we brew up great content discussing news, events, hot topics, and more, all from a psychic perspective. On the Psychic Coffee Shop, we interview amazing authors in the metaphysical realm. Coffee and Tea combines Aeson with Tracy, Dottie, Natalie, or Lady Gwendolyn for the good and the bad of being a psychic. Shameless Self-Promotion with Dottie the Psychic talks to leading and emerging YouTubers and business owners in our community. Mountain Bears brings you the latest in LGBT news and politics. The Psychic That Plans answers the question of, well, how a psychic plans. Plus, we're live on air. We take your comments and your questions, including psychic advice questions. Check out our amazing programming, book an appointment with top psychics, and find out all the wonderful things we have to offer at PCSBnetwork.com today.
Hi, I'm Aeson Knight. I provide tarot readings covering everything from love and relationships to your life questions and your most spiritual answers. And also, I provide a lot of guidance in finances and divorces and all those relationship problems. So, if you'd like to get a reading from me privately, not on air, you can feel free to do so by visiting aesonknight.com and booking your appointment. I also provide on-demand services, so if your life is a little chaotic, you can go ahead and click that call now button there on my site. Great for a quick answer question. All right, guys, back to the show. Enjoy. All right, welcome back. And yeah, there's some interesting topics here. But all right, let's move into our favorite segment of the show. Are you an asshole?
Hey!
The poll is up. We will be finding out this week.
All right. Am I the asshole for refusing reconciliation? So I, 45 male, am currently separated and trying to divorce my estranged wife. The relationship has gone from good friends in the beginning to barely words after 16 years. After 3 kids, there is only one thing I'm certain of. She is very controlling. Am I the asshole for refusing to give up working to become a stay-at-home dad? Now, mind you, I have supported my children financially for the entire relationship. My ex has sent monies electronically by me. My ex was sent money electronically by me for years. Also, during our separation, she'd taken me to court for child support she had already been receiving. She is currently driving a new car and living pretty well. My contribution financially pays all of her household bills, and her very good salary is completely her own. Just this past summer, she asked 3 times to reconcile, in which my response was a wholehearted hell to the gnaw. Now, I myself am no gem. I was a drinker and I gambled for a bit, but I never missed obligations towards my children in any way, shape, or form. Bottom line, she has ruined me financially, but that can be overcome. Am I the asshole because I said no to reconciling with a controlling woman?
I don't think so. I don't think you're an asshole. I think you're an asshole for continuing to support her behavior. I think you're an asshole for, not specifically taking care of everything in your life and making mistakes and that you learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not think that you are an asshole for, going, no, I moved on from this relationship.
Yeah, I don't necessarily call anyone who wants a divorce for any reason an asshole. I think that's a choice that one makes for whatever reason one makes it.
Right.
Now, there's an add-on here in the comments from OP. She was controlling because if she didn't get her way, there was hell for me to pay. And next, what I did with my portion of the money that I worked for every day was my choice. Ruining me financially refers to a new car that I paid for while I don't have one of my own. Ruining me financially means a court deciding wrongfully against me. I didn't gamble myself into the poorhouse. I lost what I could afford to lose. That may be different things to different people.
Right. Also, it's another comment was it's not all why I called her controlling. My money isn't gone, and I'm gainfully employed with a decent salary. I call her controlling because our relationship only works when I come to her demands, and she was not a supportive mate.
Mm-hmm.
When I made the decision to further my education, she said I was wasting my time. I made several failed attempts. I didn't graduate until we separated. Everything I ever said or did was ridiculous and challenged by her. Those are the same things I've done and said were valid and praised when said by others. When she graduated, she promptly displayed her degree. Mine was unimportant. When you see, in no way do I make myself out to be perfect. I was, however, a very dedicated and supportive husband.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I think he's wanting vindication.
Right.
That I've made the right decision. She's a horrible person.
Right.
I don't think that should ever be part of divorce.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's not the reason a lot of people get divorced.
I think what he's looking for here is something really weird, and it's called permission.
Okay.
I think he's looking for permission to divorce her.
Okay.
Which is hard, which is almost... It's weird that people look for permission from strangers.
No, actually it isn't when you think about it, because a lot of people do that. Like we are grown up and socialized to look for use permission to do things.
Right.
Like it's why we were follow ridiculous signs.
Right.
Even if we know like that's not what the thing is.
Right.
Like we observe certain social rules despite the fact there's mitigating circumstances.
Right.
So no, I don't think it's weird to look for other people's permission.
Well, again, I think it's human behavior. I also think that, the other part of why would she want to reconcile after 16 years of being separated? It's real simple. I'll guarantee you one of those children is getting ready to graduate.
Yeah, I'm figuring it's probably a situation in which she's reevaluating her decision.
And her finances.
And realizing that what's probably about to happen is about what you're saying, that 16 years, one of those kids is getting ready to go to school.
Right.
And financially,
Right.
She's the breadwinner.
Right.
So at this point, she's, probably earning at least enough that this child's not going to qualify for much, if anything.
Right.
And she's recognizing her own financial liability.
Right.
In the situation that her ex cannot be ordered to pay any more than he's already being ordered to pay.
Right.
Or even if he can, it's going to be minimal in comparison.
Well, and that's my thing, is I really believe that, and this happens a lot. Is that, you get into this situation where you get dependent on your child support. And then the child graduates and you got a car payment and a house payment that was not based on your child support. The child support paid the other bills. Now you're financially over your head.
Right.
Because
I
child
think that
support wasn't going for what it was, which was for the child.
Well, but in other circumstances, I feel that if you're paying household bills, that is in general for the child. Got to provide a roof over their head. Got to put food in the fridge. Got to have the electricity on. Got to do these things.
Right.
Generally, while child support exists. But it's also a situation. I think this may be if this ex is not necessarily the worst human ever, but is at least more pragmatic, despite their own problems. They're having the dawning realization is divorce is the worst situation to be in.
Right.
Especially if it is true, at least to a degree, that they are controlling.
Right.
Because right now, what you have, or what OP's ex has, is a spouse that they can't do anything else to.
Right.
That any potential that they would have had to fully spend the entirety of their paycheck is gone.
Yeah.
Any ability that they had to be like, look, you need to pay for this and pay for that and do this other thing, and your needs don't come first. I let you sleep in a bed and I feed you every once in a while. It's your duty.
Right.
So yeah, I think there are a fair number of pragmatic exes and soon to be exes that realize that the great big giant divorce is not a windfall.
Right. So, my opinion, OP, file for divorce tomorrow. I know it's going to be a long process. It'll be drawn out. It always is. It'll be worth it in the end.
Yeah. I think regardless, you've already established this relationship's over and ought to be.
Right.
And now any attempt at reconciliation is just going to end up being financial in benefit.
Right. And, the poll is up. Let's have the listeners make sure they vote. We will release the results when we are done with relationship advice. And this one's a little interesting. Go for it.
All right. So my 32 female boss, 65 female, isn't happy for me. I, 32 female, am in my final year of law school, and for the past 8 months, I've been working as a law clerk for a local counsel practice associated with a Fortune 100 insurance company. Unfortunately, the company is in a cost-cutting mode because they are anticipating a recession. So there is not a position available for me after graduation. Regardless, it has been a good job for a law student, flexible and practical work that has prepared me well for my first post-grad job. The office is owned and run by a female attorney, 65 female, along with another partner and 4 other attorneys. She is my parents' age, and as far as I know, we get along well enough. She was supportive when I had to take some time off for medical treatment this fall, allowing me to work weekends and remotely as needed. I have told her more than once that I'd be happy to join the office as a staff attorney if a position comes up. Since no such position has appeared, I obviously have been sending out dozens of applications and hoping I have a job nailed down before graduation. We had discussed while I was writing applications, and I told her I was requesting $90,000 a year as a starting salary. She laughed at me and said if anyone hires me for $90,000, everyone in the office would quit and take the same jobs. The joke is on her. I was offered a position with a direct competitor for $98,000. Side note, a competing company but in a neighboring state and also on the defense side, so we are never going to cross paths in court. It's the exact same job that she would be training me for if she had an attorney position available. Here's where things get weird. When I told her I was obviously flattered, relieved, and extremely happy, her reaction was disappointing to say the least. I don't think I even told her the salary, except maybe they met my salary expectations. She didn't even smile and definitely wasn't happy for me. She gave me a lackluster congratulations that was so weird. Her secretary checked in with me after work because she had overheard the interaction and thought I might be upset by it. Yeah, it was that weird. Then today, it got even stranger. Before Christmas, I interviewed for a judicial clerkship. Today, I got a voicemail offering me that job as well. We observed Taco Tuesday in our office, so I called a ride in my boss's car to the local cantina for lunch. It was just the two of us in the car, so I mentioned that the judge had made me an offer as well. Her response was, "Yeah, I talked to the judge. That interview didn't go well for you." And she gave me a very uncomfortable, disapproving look. No congratulations, nothing. I don't know how my brain and mouth rescued me from that awkward statement. Well, then you must have said a lot of really nice things about me. Thank you. Phew, good job, me. I deserve a cookie just for being that smooth. The weird part is that she didn't elaborate. She didn't tell me what I did wrong or offer me constructive criticism or, God forbid, try to make me feel better about what she had said to me. It's fine if she didn't want to talk about it in front of her other coworkers at lunch, but she didn't bring it up again, and neither did I. And if it was so bad, bad enough to be worth mentioning, bad enough that she had to basically convince the judge I was a good candidate, then why would they have offered me the job? I got the job. Judicial clerkships carry different levels of prestige, and while this one was not particularly prestigious, it's still not small potatoes. It feels like she wanted me to feel bad, like she wanted to humble me and frankly steal my joy. The other attorneys, including the other partner, seemed to like me a lot, and the district manager said I was one of the best law clerks they've ever had. I'm not saying I'm special, but it's so strange that when everyone is happy for me except my boss. My first resolution after today is that my boss is no longer entitled to being kept in the loop about any future interviews or job offers. Since she is my most recent reference and therefore receiving phone calls about me from potential employers, I felt like it was professional courtesy to let her know when I have interviews and their outcomes. For the record, I am 2 for 2. I've had 2 interviews and 2 job offers, so it's not like I'm overwhelming her with information or taking up a lot of her time. In fact, I accepted the competitor's offer, so I may not send out any other applications at all. She has rained on my parade twice now, and she's not invited to any future parades. Second, I'm considering taking her off my references and listing just the other partner. I just don't want that kind of negativity associated with my resume. However, she obviously has been saying nice things about me to recruiters and judges, despite being negative to my face. What do you think? Third, I am just not sure what to do with her anymore. While I'm not an oversharer, I feel like I need to shut down any other discussions that aren't directly related to work assignments. I don't need anybody cutting down my confidence at this stage in my life. I was planning on inviting the entire office to my graduation party at a local bar, free drinks, in May, but now I'm not sure I even want her there. I just feel really bummed that someone who I thought would cheer me on and be happy for me is so ready to shut me down. And I don't know why. In fact, I think having a good employable law clerk is a reflection of her training. Why is she being so negative about my success?
Well, and I see this a lot.
Okay.
And what it is, and it's just boggles my mind a lot of times when you get into professionals that have been in the business forever, is they came up hard. So they expect you to come up hard too. I've seen this in nursing a lot. I've seen it some in the psychic industry. Granted, there's a lot more independence in the psychic industry than underemployees, and unfortunately, study under me and then you can go do the job. My advice is don't look on her so hard. Don't look on her, your boss, who is 65, who came up during a time when there wasn't a lot of female attorneys, most likely. She probably still wears parasuits. She probably still feels that she is fighting a man's world. And she's trying to prep you for all the potholes that she's been in. My opinion. Yours?
Similar boat, but for different reasoning.
Okay.
I think this may be like the different, like the two hemispheres of life.
Right.
Like you're 32, you're just getting your law degree, your career is just starting, you're just going out and looking at positions. You have a salary expectation that I'm sure is more than legitimate, but maybe very closely encroaching on what she's making.
Right.
Because you're both at like distinct opposite ends of your career.
Right.
At 65, her career is starting to wind down. More than likely, she's looking at, is this when I should retire? Is this when I, because she's already at 65 had to do her Medicare paperwork.
Right.
So, if she has kids, they've already, moved out and they're moving on with their life because you're right, she is your parents' age.
Right.
So she's having a little bit of empty nesting going on in her personal life.
Right.
And she may now be facing that in her professional life.
Right.
That she was enjoying this motherly role and some of that feeling with a younger employee.
Right.
And she may be struggling to even articulate the things going wrong in this situation. Right. And is not just negative towards you and your career, and not even exactly negative towards you and your career,
right,
as much as she's facing her own problems,
right,
indirectly.
Right.
And it's easier to look at it as you're the problem, or you're being young, you're being naive, you're being stupid, you didn't handle that right, you didn't do these things the way she would have done.
Right.
As kind of a depression on top of like a very toxic situation.
Right.
And I mean that in like, it's more of a toxic stew. Like she's allowed like this mothering thing to come into the workplace where she's supplementing like feelings that she's had, you know what I mean? And now it's all unraveling.
Right.
And so it's kind of a dumpster fire emotionally for her.
Right.
I think that may be more where the malfunction starts. Right. I don't think that necessarily the things she's outlined to do are reasonable.
Right.
She's giving you good references because you're a good employee and she knows that.
Right.
So I don't think she's attaching negatively to your resume.
Right.
So one, leave her there. I think you're going to find the bigger insult is if you remove her.
Right.
And that's probably the last thing she needs and the last thing you need.
Right. Well, and I'm also reminded of the ending scene of The Devil Wears Prada. where, the editor is told that she's the worst mistake that Miranda has ever made.
You'd be a fool not to hire her.
It'd be a fool not to hire her.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of where this is at, and I think The Devil Wears Prada has a lot of that same kind of misplaced, work absorbed your life, and then your life starts to be about the people you work with, and then the relationships get weird. So I think you're definitely right. The situation's gone weird.
Right. And I think that the boss would probably want you to stay on, even though she supposedly doesn't have a position for you.
Basically.
Yeah.
I think I would also look at maybe trying to do more with her.
Right.
Like to help one ease over this awkwardness, and to keep this as a professional contact that you have.
Right.
And on good footing.
Right.
So I think I would definitely keep your graduation party plan.
Yep.
Make sure she's invited.
Yes.
I'd pay her a lot of extra special attention. So that she does understand that she was very important.
Right.
Because you've said as much.
Right.
That you're being offered these offers are a beautiful reflection on her. So that she can kind of have the opportunity, at least,
right,
to start to make sense of the fact that, like, I'm putting an employee in a child position, and then I'm taking out my feelings of hurt and frustration on them.
Right.
Because I think that's going to be a dawning realization later. I think, honestly, if that secretary is worth her weight in paper clips,
right,
she's probably going to pull her to the side and say something. Like, I don't know what's going on with you.
Yes.
But do you want to think a little on that conversation you had with her?
Exactly.
Because that's part of the hidden side of, like, assistants, administrative assistants, personal assistants, and secretaries. That's one of those hidden conversations that sometimes occurs. Is we will go to that person and go, "What the hell was that?" And I've had those moments,
right?
Where I've looked at someone who technically is a superior and been like, I don't know what's going on with you personally, but I don't know what that was, because that makes no sense.
Right. All right. So let's get the poll and end the poll. And no, you are not the asshole this week, Joe. You continue on it.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! All right, guys. Well, let's take a moment and thank our sponsors. They are highly important to us. Those are our team of baristas. There we go. Thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda Bryant, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Charles Shaw, Dottie the Psychic, Tracy Vaughn, and Caitlin Bell. Let's not forget Devin, who is our newest barista. If you'd like to learn more about supporting the show, please visit pcspnetwork.com and click Barista.
Alrighty.
Yes. All right, guys. We will be back tomorrow night. Is Under the Rowan Tree with Lady Guinevere. And then, of course, Coffee and Tea comes up this Thursday, both at 8
Gwendolyn.
Gwendolyn.
Oh, he is not feeling good, guy.
I am not feeling good, guy.
Gosh.
Yeah. So, with that, y'all. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Tell me the deck is stacked. You can whisper behind my back. You can show me how the odds are up against me all day You can't stop me now.